What's up, guys? Bad Player here, and I am actually at one of my old churches. I used to play here for about 5 years, and the keyboardist and the worship leader here at the time, they kind of need some help with the keyboard that I used to use. It's a little overwhelming. It's a North Stage, and I talked about it before on one of my previous channels, but I'm going to go in there and I'm going to show them some of the stuff that I learned and just make it into a video so they can take a look at it, but also so that you guys can take a look at some of the details from the North Stage. So as we always say, let's go ahead and get started. So this is the Columbia campus for Seacoast, and the two people that are going to be a part of this video are Spencer Foster, who is the current volunteer worship leader, and Julie Bonds, who is the current keyboardist. And you'll probably hear their voices as I am going through the tutorial, because I am actually doing this for them because they wanted to get to know more about the Nord Stage, which is a complicated instrument. So without further ado, here we go. Okay, so obviously the Nord Stage, designed for on-stage presence. This thing can be rather complicated because of all the analog switches that you have from left to right, but it's actually divvied up into what I'm going to call 6 different sections. So the first section is going to be on the left-hand side. It's all designated for the organ. And you can change a lot of the pitch of the organ. You can change a lot of the effects that it has. You can even, on this right-hand side, you can change the drive that the organ has, as well as the speed of the vibrato that the organ is developing. So you can change all that kind of stuff over here on the left-hand side. This section here is all for piano, so all the different types of piano that you're using, and you can actually change the octave that the piano actually plays at. So I'll show that in just a second. You can change it from like medium to soft. You can actually change the brilliance, which is basically just how bright the piano can sound. And then there are different dynamics to each type. So you can actually click on the type that you want to use and then the dynamic that you want to have for that type. This whole section is designed for the synth pads. You have the external section, which is right here, and you actually have a USB connection that you can plug into a computer. And then any pads that you actually bring to the Nord Stage, you can change the effects of it right here in the extension part. Then you have the effects. These effects can change anything of the organ, piano, or synth pads, depending on what they're actually put on at the time. So for example, this says synth right here. If I double tap it, it will go to organ. If I double tap it, it will go to piano. Double tap again, it'll go to synth. If I hit it once, it'll turn off. So this is EQ. So you can actually change your own EQ of the keyboard, but I don't recommend doing this because the EQ can actually be changed by the sound guy. So you don't really have to worry about what you change here. If you're doing an event by yourself, you can change your effects on the keyboard itself, depending on what you want and depending how much you want it to be heard. Right now, we have more bass than we have treble. So if the sound guy just feels like whatever he does, he just can't get more out of the high part of the keyboard, you can always turn this up, and then that will actually help him out. You have a compressor. Compressor just kind of gives a different form of ambiance, and then you have reverb. Okay, so those are the main sections of the keyboard. So let's start with all the way to the left. Let's start with the organ. Okay. All right. So as I said, you can change the way the organ sounds by changing these pads here. You can change all the effects. That's full organ sound. That's full organ sound with effect. Okay, so don't typically want to have that. So I typically don't like to have a lot of the high because you really want it to have some meat. So and I don't want it to have too much of the low. So you can just sit here and you can change it. Okay, so that's how you change the effects on the organ. Now there's different types of organs that you can actually use. So this actually changed So you can change the effects on the organ. You can actually change the organ model. Same effects. And what this does is that if it's the F type, it's just going to give a dynamic difference between what side of the organ you want it to be sitting on. So, okay, it just activates whatever side you want on. Okay, okay, so that is the organ, okay? And you can play with it as you go, but that's essentially how it works. The piano. Piano is, once again, something that's very, very straightforward, okay? So if I wanted to change what type of piano I was using, I just literally tap on the info tab here. And it changes the piano that you're using, okay? You can also change the type. So all you have to do is press the type button. There may only be one. Okay, but essentially you can get all the different types of pianos that you want by activating those here. There are 3 sections of synth. There are bass, pad, and actual synth. So bass, if you have been listening to it, bass has this very warm sound. And if I can actually scroll all through all the bass sounds right here. Okay, and if you notice on this side, it shows whatever effects that it's using. So for example, if I went to this one, okay, I can actually change the effects that this has by clicking on this. Okay, so it just depends on really what you're looking for in a specific pad. So you don't have to just overlook a pad just because you heard the original sound, you're like, that's not what I'm looking for. You also want to look through the effects and see if you find something that actually works with what you're looking for. There's also a filter that you can use here that changes the actual dynamic of the pad itself. So you notice that's actually flickering. So you can turn that off completely, and what you're getting is very, very little of that pad, very, very little of that filter. So it really just depends on what you're looking for, okay? But going back to the one that we typically use, which is the number 18, it's a very, very warm feeling pad, but you can actually change the synthiness of the pad right here. Okay, so if you wanted it to sound very ominous, you know, just ambiance in the background, you can do that by changing the effects here. But if you wanted it to have more effect, you can obviously just add a little bit more. And then obviously I can change the effect too. Same exact pad, different effects. So there's bass. So if I just scroll all the way through these, I just hold that down until I get to pad. This is going to be your pad sounds. They might sound similar to the bass sounds, but they actually have some more effects to them. So those are all the pads. Synth is going to be a lot of the effects. Like if you're looking for something specific, this is kind of just like, you know, wind or whatever it is.
They're 99 per section.
99 per section, and then there's effects with each one. So I mean, there's just tons of ways you can do this.
Yeah.
You can find out what these work with depending on the song that you go for. And to be honest, that's probably one of the areas that you guys can focus on more is the fast songs. So like if you're playing the song Praise Goes On, you really want to find out what that effect is, because the less you can take out of the tracks and the more you do here, the more liberties you guys have as far as where the song can go. And because you're limited on instruments, it's very important to know this instrument very, very well, because this can replace a lot of the things that you're missing. Okay, so anyway, that's synth. External, once again, I kind of explained this at the beginning, but if you have a computer and you have pads that you want to incorporate into the computer, into the pad, into the keyboard, there's a USB port on the back. You plug it into your laptop, make sure they're synced, then you can turn that on and it will activate that pad on here, and you can change the volume of it. So if you're looking for something very, very specific that's not on this keyboard, you can always add it into the extension filter. So the effects. I was showing her this before, but essentially you can create a delay, you can create like a choir sound, you can create a lot of different variants to what you actually hear. So for example, so you can add a lot of effect here, where if you wanted to have something that had a lot of repetition to it, and you didn't want to have to play a ton of stuff, you could do that here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to turn the piano off, because I actually want to show these layers, and I have it attached to the synth. Okay, so I can actually change the way the synth sounds as far as the effects goes by adding an effect that may help balance what you're missing. Okay, so that's how you can change the way something sounds. This is with nothing there. This is with the effects. Okay? Once again, don't need to necessarily worry about this unless you're playing by yourself. Then you have I'm going to add the rest of the stuff on here for this. You have your reverb and compression. So if I turn this off, that's what you get. Okay, the reverb's off. Turn the reverb on, and I have it on. You're sitting in a hallway, which we are. It makes the effect as if you're sitting in a hallway. Okay, I can make it sound like it's in a room. Okay, I can make it sound like it's in a room sitting on a stage. I can make it sound like it's sitting in a stage. I can make it sound like it's in a hall. Okay, so that is the way that you can actually create the different effects of the ambience, and you can make it sound more dry or more wet. Okay, so you can change the dynamic of the effect here. So once again, if you have it off, okay, turn it back on. That's a lot. Like, so I typically have it about halfway so that it's not. So it just has just a very, 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 very warm effect. Everything that I did on the Nord stage, I did it to have the warm effect feel, because you have the rhythm guitar that has a lot of the rhythm jive. You have the lead guitar that has a lot, well, when I was here anyway, you had the lead guitar that had a lot of the punch. You had the bass player that's playing a lot of low stuff, but still had a lot of punch to it. Drums giving a lot of punch. There was really not anything that had a lot of just warm ambiance feel. So that's the way I set this up. But you can change it to whatever you want it to be. And so my best recommendation when it comes to this keyboard is to have somebody take it home. Like, have Julie take it home for like a week or two and just play with it as much as they possibly can. You take it home, play with it as much as you possibly can. Just try everything that there is on the keyboard, and and then figure out what you think is going to sound best. Now, I will say this: I've taken this home before, plugged it into my system, found something that was like, oh man, that sounds amazing. Plugged it into here, sounded terrible. So you really want to make sure that you know the keyboard well enough to when you actually bring it in here, you can go, okay, I want it to sound like this, and then you can sit there and play with it. And that's the reason why a lot of the songs that that we played with Evan, everyone would always say, you found a pad that sounds just like the recording. And that's because I took the time to look through this entire thing until I found something that sounded just like the recording. And so that takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort. But once you find it, and it's a song that you do over and over again, you save it on a pad. You have a set list, you save it on there, because talk about storage. I've only had her use 3. So there's 6 programs in the third layer. There are 21 layers. 21 times 6.
A lot of layers.
There's a lot of layers. You can get whatever you want for any set list, any organized fashion, any way you want. And that is the beautiful thing about this board, is that if you play with it long enough, any song that you guys ever play, you can have a pad associated with that.
Yeah.
Associated with that song, and you use that pad for that song. And I didn't mean to hit that. Right? So that's it. That's pretty much all I can tell you guys, as far as just without having to sit here and spend hours and hours looking for very specific pads. Well, guys, that's a wrap for me. I hope you liked this video. If you did, go ahead and subscribe down below and click on that like button. But if there's something you didn't like, just go ahead and comment down below. I'd really appreciate it. You know, obviously I didn't go into too much detail with the Nord stage. There's just hours and hours of content I could have gone into. And I probably won't be doing another video until January. There's just too much going on with family. This is the Christmas holiday season, and you know how that is with, you know, just trying to finish everything up with work, and then all of a sudden, you know, you got to spend a lot of time with family. Not have to. I mean, I actually like spending time with my family. But all in all, I probably won't be doing another video until January. But in that case, in case I don't do another video, I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas. God bless you. And I will look forward to seeing you in the next year. Okay? And as always, my name is Steve, and you can call me the Pad Player. Thanks a lot, guys, and I hope to catch you next time.